Well, good evening and welcome everyone to the October meeting of the North Jersey Astronomical Group. And we are about to get started with our monthly meeting here. And so we're going to, as you see on your screen already, we're going to have a presentation tonight about light pollution, a particular problem that impacts just about us all and affects the club's activities as well. And so we are very happy to have Steve Mariconda with us tonight. He is a DarkSky International delegate and a graduate student at Rutgers. And we're going to listen to this presentation by Steve. And of course, ask questions. You can use the chat. And of course, we can answer questions at the end as well. And for the members, please do stick around. We do have a couple of important things to vote on at the end of the meeting, especially our elections are taking place tonight too. So stick around for that so that we can take care of that voting at that point. Let's get started with our presentation. Steve, please feel free to introduce yourself and get started.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. Thanks for the Astronomy Club for having me here. My name is Steve Mariconda. I live in Saddlebrook, New Jersey. As you said, I'm a DarkSky International delegate. Just became a delegate recently. I've been like an pretty active advocate for about 2 years now. And yes, I go to Rutgers. I'm almost done at Rutgers, degree in public health. So we'll talk a little bit about light pollution in the nocturnal environment. I'll focus, of course, on the astronomy aspects, but also just different impacts of light pollution, like how it affects human health, how it affects environmental, ecological health, and things like that. All right. And at any point, if you guys have any questions, yeah, just drop it in the chat, or like at some points I might open it for discussion during the presentation. But yeah, just to make sure this is working. Actually, yeah. So I'll start out with like, has anyone here ever been to like a really good dark sky or have a good experience with like a truly dark sky? Feel free to share, or maybe your latest experience at a dark sky.
Well, Omar was just sharing one before we started. Omar, you want to chime in on your Texas experience? Oh, I don't hear Omar. Maybe you might have stepped away for a moment there.
No, I'm sorry. Yep, I just I stepped away for a second. I'm back. No, as I was mentioning it earlier, I had the opportunity to go to Fort Davis, Texas, not too long ago when I was commissioning another scope out there. And during the time I was there, it was a waxing gibbous moon. I can't remember exactly where it was at, but it was definitely almost full. And the night sky that I saw, I was just in sheer awe with the amount of stars and the objects you could see just, with your naked eye. Yeah, I mean, it was just incredible. Nothing like I've ever seen here in New Jersey. And as I was mentioning earlier, I mean, I was staring up for so long that I actually got a kink in my neck that,
Mm.
I had to work out, but it was just phenomenal.
And that's with the waxing gibbous moon too. That's impressive.
And that's with a waxing gibbous moon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it just makes you understand, everything that we're missing, when we're viewing, night skies from our Bortle 8, zone. So
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so.
a couple of people mentioned some locations in the chat. Diane mentioned Nevada. Sue mentioned Ashokan near Kingston, New York.
Oh, yes.
And Mark mentioned his first dark sky was so overwhelming he couldn't align his telescope. Yeah, that's a common experience.
Nevada was so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And
Right.
there were so many shooting stars, and it was truly amazing. There was no moon. It was just something that I'll always remember. It was remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nevada definitely has some of the darkest skies, despite, Las Vegas being there. If you're far enough away, it has some of the darkest skies in the US. Yeah.
Very far. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Very cool.
The opportunity to go to Death Valley last year, and that had some amazing dark skies.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. Yes. Been to the Joshua Tree, Anza Borrego State Park in California, also pretty good dark skies. Yeah, definitely have to go in Death Valley. It's in my next adventure. Very cool. Thanks for sharing, guys. So yeah, you guys doing a presentation for the astronomy group. Of course, you guys have had your experiences with dark skies, so we know how amazing they are and how, we just, my goal being involved in the Dark Sky New Jersey chapter is just to try to bring awareness among the general public. And sorry, the slide transition is being a little slow. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, just trying to bring awareness to people, because probably a lot of people in this area probably have never even seen like a starry sky, or they don't even know what light pollution is. And so just trying to educate and show like there's other aspects to light pollution too, aside from just the starry skies, like the way it affects wildlife and affects our health. And there's a lot of new science coming out about just the effects of light, like artificial light in general, on human health and the environment. It's a new and booming field. So it's not just the astronomers anymore, which is good, because we can form alliances with different academic specialties, and we can like really drive home some change and improve lighting. So, but anyway, I will get into that. Of course, DarkSky International, formerly the International Dark Sky Association, protects the night from light pollution. It's been around since about 1986, I believe. We're based in Tucson, Arizona. And I'm also a member of the Sierra Club and the Audubon too, because they all have pretty good positions in terms of on light pollution and reducing light pollution. So just something to keep in mind there, building those alliances. So of course, what is light pollution? It's the excessive, misdirected, or obstructive artificial light at night that washes out starlight in the night sky, as well as disrupts ecosystems, and it has adverse health effects, not to mention wasting energy and money, and contributes to climate change because of that. The excess burning of fossil fuels on light that is not useful, light that shines up into the night sky. So the way I define here the 5 forms of light pollution, excessive lighting in general, this is both indoors and outdoors actually. Glare, light trespass, light clutter, and sky glow. I'll go into more detail about those 5 aspects of light pollution. This image here, just a nice juxtaposition there between like the city sky and what you could see at a good dark site with a good camera, of course. But it is like night and day. I was just up in the Adirondacks camping last week, and it's just, I showed my 2 friends who have never seen a sky like that. Showed them the sky for the first time. They were like just blown away. So it's something that everyone needs to see in their life. They need to see a dark sky. Excuse me one sec. All right, so I'll start off with just excessive lighting. This is actually where most of the scientific research is about the health aspects of light. Like a lot of most of our indoor environments, especially with the advent of like blue-white LEDs. These are LEDs with a lot of blue-white spectrum in them, so it imitates daylight essentially. So most of the day, and especially at night when we have very bright white indoor environments, this affects our sleep patterns and our circadian rhythms. There's a lot of science coming out saying that we really should be using warmer and not as bright lights indoors, because when you're imitating daylight with your lighting, it makes it so that melatonin is not released in your brain when it should be. You need that darkness, or like the warmer light colors, similar to a sunset. So yes, excessive lighting, and this is indoors and outdoors. A lot of times lit environments are just brighter than they need to be in order to see. So it leads to a lot of energy waste, and it's just not necessarily that good for our health. Next up, we have glare. I bet everyone has a story about, driving down the road, and these new headlights, these new LED headlights are just extremely glaring. Yeah, this limits visibility.
They are awful. They really are.
Yeah. I don't know how these have gotten past, I don't know, the regulatory bodies, but there is more of a push now for some kind of regulation of these new headlights. I mean, they need to be properly aimed, but also just like the color temperature, which I will go into more, but essentially color temperature goes on a scale from like 1000 Kelvin to 10,000 Kelvin. It's like a red to blue spectrum, with like 4000 Kelvin is kind of just neutral white. A lot of these newer LED headlights are like 5000, 6000 Kelvin. So they produces that really white blue light, which is worse for glare. So headlights are an extreme example of this, but also just a lot of parking lot floodlights that businesses install. These are when you have that light shining directly into your eyes, it causes your pupils to constrict, which limits visibility. So it really defeats the purpose of installing lighting in the first place. Like you want lighting to actually be useful and not blinding. So yeah, I still want to look at the sun every time I get out of my car. So anyway, yeah, this is definitely becoming an issue that the general public is more aware of now, because before, with incandescent lights, even halogen lights, we didn't have this strong of a glare problem. So with the LEDs, which are much more powerful, got to be able to bring that under control. And the real solution to glare is using warmer colored lights. Like LEDs now do come in like 2000, 3000 Kelvin. So like more like incandescence or high pressure sodium, but also shielding the light so that the light's not shining directly into your eyes. It's shining on the ground where it's needed. Next up, we got light trespass. Sure, we can all relate to this. I've had to install blackout curtains in my house because, I live right near Market Street and the police station right there in Saddlebrook. So yeah, you get a lot of light going where it's not needed or not intended and not wanted. So the most common issue with this is, just light shining into your bedroom. That light will affect your sleep. Even small amounts of ambient light in your bedroom environment is not good for sleep. There's been a lot of studies on that. So, and yeah, of course, people say just put up some blackout curtains, but really it should be on the emitter of the lights. It's their responsibility to make sure that the light is being useful and staying on their property. So that's a big one, light trespass. Light clutter. This one has been talked about more recently. It's just like the disorientation of there being too many different types of lights in the environment. Of course, all usually unshielded lights. So this can cause disorientation for pedestrians, but also driving, especially in dense urban areas. So it's something with shielded light fixtures, you don't have so much of this problem. So, and last but not least, of course, you got sky glow, which is essentially, light that's being emitted above the 90 degrees from the nadir, so the horizontal plane. Most light fixtures we have are like shine sideways, but a lot of it is actually shining above 90 degrees. So that diagonal spread of light is what causes the worst sky glow. Because a lot of people may think, well, my light's shielded on the top, light's not shining straight up into the air. But light shining straight up into the air is actually not the worst type of sky glow. It's the diagonal, somewhere from like about 100 degrees to like 135. That is the worst type of sky glow. So because it travels further along the Earth's surface. So this is an example. I think this is in Arizona. But yes, of course, in the New York metropolitan area, we live in one of the most light polluted areas in the country. But we're trying to raise that awareness. This just provides a little visualization here. You got the useful light, which is directly under the light, maybe at a 45-degree angle down. But then all this other light here is just essentially wasted light. You have the light above the horizontal plane shining up as a sky glow. And actually between 90 degrees and 80 degrees, that diagonally downward, that's usually the strongest glare zone. So you actually really good lighting not only prevents uplight, but also prevents that from 90 degrees to 80 degrees, that glare zone. You want to keep that in mind. And a lot of this can go as the stray light is light trespass. So we will get into the solutions, of course. It's not all doom and gloom. But yeah, some consequences of light pollution, you name it. It affects many different things, as I said before: stargazing, human health, visibility, animals, plants, and the planet, and of course, money too. Here are just a few organisms here that are affected by light pollution. This is not an exhaustive list, because essentially, like humans have turned night essentially into day. Like, and we've been, for billions of years, life has evolved in a natural light dark cycle, with the brightest nights being the full moon. So you can't expect to just we've radically changed that environment at night, and you can't expect there to not be consequences for that in terms of like what living things are able to adapt to. So these are just a few examples here. I'll go into a little more detail. Maybe we've heard the issue about sea turtles. Mom sea turtle, usually it will go to the same beach. Will navigate hundreds, if not thousands of miles to the same beach they were born on to lay their eggs. And usually it's during full moon or around then. But so when the mom sea turtle goes to the beach, when the babies eventually hatch, they are usually inclined to go towards the water, which is usually brighter because the moonlight or even starlight is reflecting off the water, and the area on land is usually darker. But of course, we've altered that. We have a lot of beach towns and unshielded lights on the beach. This does unfortunately cause sea turtles to go towards traffic, roads right next to the beach, and it's not really good for sea turtle survival because they're supposed to go to the water. Baby sea turtles already have a hard enough time, getting picked off by birds and crabs. They don't need humans and their excess of light causing a further decline in their population. So there's actually a lot of towns. I know in Florida, they have basically some protected beaches where they have installed fully shielded lights, even like more like amber or red lights to be so that light spectrum is more invisible to the turtles, and they actually go towards the ocean where they should be going. I'm sure you've heard about this from the Audubon folks. I was really surprised to learn about this. I didn't know about it till about maybe 2 years ago, but birds are just really heavily affected by light pollution, especially in cities. You already have like the really reflective glass on these skyscrapers. Birds really can't tell they can't tell it's a solid surface for the most part. So a lot of times they're flying into windows, it leads to millions, if not billions of bird deaths actually per year globally. And this problem is made worse in places like New York City. You got like just tons of lights reflecting off the windows. It disorients birds because birds actually use celestial navigation, just like our ancestors did. And this will totally distract them. They won't be able to see the stars, and causes the issues of reflection on windows. And the World Trade Center, we all know that every 9/11 we have that memorial lights, but the memorial lights, they have to usually turn them off for a little bit and turn them back on because there's just thousands of birds circling through, very disoriented by the lights. And unfortunately, a lot of them get exhausted and they end up just not being able to make their full migration. So Audubon they have a big initiative called Lights Out, where during peak migration times, cities and towns are urged to just turn off all unnecessary lights or use proper shielding just to make sure that we're not, causing further decline to bird populations. So. Trees. So, people think about animals being affected by light, but of course plants are too. Like plants cannot tell the difference between sunlight, moonlight, and artificial light. So as you can see here, this little example, when light is directly shining on trees that normally lose the deciduous trees that normally lose their leaves in the fall, the area where the light is shining, they will maintain their leaves when they're actually supposed to drop. And this can cause issues when it actually gets a lot colder and cause damage to the tree. Pretty good example right there. And vice versa too. It'll cause in the spring trees to bloom early when they really shouldn't when it's too cold. So yeah, and I know a lot of people have those garden lights and they do look nice, but really in general, plants need that rest period. Plants sleep just like humans, essentially. They have circadian rhythms. So we should abide by that. Insects, if there's one family or group of animals that's affected the most by light pollution, it's got to be insects. We've all seen moths gather to the flame or to the light. But actually, some recent research has shown that they're not actually attracted to the light. They're actually being disoriented by it because they think it's basically moonlight. And moonlight is usually at the back of flying insects. So it causes them to keep because of parallax. They think that light is supposed to just stay there. The moon usually stays in the same place when they're flying, so they end up just circling around. And of course, this interferes with hunting and mating patterns for especially pollinating insects. And this is, of course, not good for our agriculture and ecosystems, right? Like pollinators are just so essential to the web of life. Talk about some energy waste here. This is something that maybe city councils and governments care the most about. It's estimated $3.7 billion are spent per year on unneeded lighting. I believe this is just in the United States, actually. 21 million tons of CO2 are burned unnecessarily. Because all that light that's shining, especially the light shining above 90 degrees, like it's all mostly unnecessary, unless you're trying to light like a flag under a flagpole. Most of that light is just unnecessary and not even intended light. Like people don't realize how much light is spilling into the sky. And but by shielding our lights properly, that light we can actually reduce our electricity bills because of this, and of course burn less CO2 in creating this electricity, creating this light. All right, human health. Nice shot of the Milky Way there. I did not take that. So I'm still working on my astrophotography. I need an actual camera. So yes, melatonin, the darkness hormone, as it's called. Melatonin it's released by, I think, all mammals when light levels get lower at night. And in humans, this is it's a precursor hormone to sleep onset. So it's an essential hormone to be released by our brains to get ready for sleep. It usually takes a couple hours to build up after sunset. The problem is when we have our bright indoor and outdoor environments, we're like limiting the production of this important hormone, which is essential to have good sleep. So, a lot of people in today's day and age, they do struggle with insomnia, and there is some pretty good evidence, at least with indoor lighting, that like it's a pretty big cause of insomnia. In my house, I actually have like my smart lights. I have everything fade to like orange and then red past a certain point, past like 10 p.m. and it definitely works. And my wife falls right asleep like after like 20 minutes. So there's some real stuff there. And then American Medical Association, this is back in 2016, actually published a big report on the environmental and human health effects of light. Lighting industry wasn't too happy about that, but now it's big. It's pretty much been adopted even by like large lighting associations like the Illuminating Engineering Society. So yes, we want to essentially use warmer and less bright types of light. Just use as much light as you need. Don't overdo it. All right, I want to see if this works here. Just a little demonstration of like unshielded versus shielded light. Let me let's see. Might have to go to give me one sec. Jesus, these advertisements. Okay, I need to switch the screen sharing option here. Let's see. One sec. Zoom. Sorry about that. How do I think I have to stop the share here, and then I have to share that the YouTube screen.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Technology. All right. Let me know if you guys can hear this.
Nope.
Can you guys hear it?
No.
No.
Darn. Okay. Well, what I will do is I'll just show essentially what he's showing here. I'll narrate over it. Basically demonstrating here, we got an unshielded fixture, right, which is shining light. A fully unshielded fixture, like an acorn fixture, shines light basically everywhere except for directly underneath it, which is where it's, that's usually the most useful light. He puts a little pedestrian, little plastic figure here. And as you can see, you know, not very good visibility of this person. And once he puts a little shield on top of it, bada bing, get much better visibility, right? Even with that light bulb shining straight up, just like a simple cover like that provides much better illumination. So, you know, like before, let me switch, you know, before we had like LEDs and like before we even had like bulbs in general, like obviously you couldn't shine down flames, like flames always went up for gas lights and things like that. But now we have the technology to create some proper fully shielded lights. So the technology is there, we should use it. Let me get back to the presentation here. All right. This one's fun. Can anyone spot the potential stalker? I'm sure you guys can probably see him a little bit in the back, but he's a little bit obscured, right? Why do you think that is?
Too much glare.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, like what most people put lighting outside their house. A lot of people do for, you know, for safety or security reasons. But if you have this, you know, very glaring fixture here, that's not really doing anyone any good except for the person hiding in the shadows. And by simply providing some type of shielding, much better visibility causes your pupils to dilate. So yeah, we really do want to just use fully shielded lighting is safer lighting. This good old map of the United States from space via the VERS infrared satellites. Well, it's visible and infrared. Yes, but clearly the Eastern United States, the most densely populated area, or, you know, the most populated area of the country. You can just see that light. That's all basically wasted light pollution. Wow. We still got some decent dark skies out there in the West. And of course, on the East Coast, you can pick out some areas there, the Catskills, the Adirondacks, Cherry Springs, and Maine. If anyone's ever been up to Maine, like Baxter State Park, that area, just really gorgeous dark skies out there. Some statistics are saying that light pollution increases every 2% every year, which is pretty bad. Luckily, this prediction for 2025 it's not that bad yet. So, this is maybe an extreme prediction, but we definitely don't want to keep increasing that. I mean, with the technology and the awareness that we have now, we want to keep spreading that awareness, and we should be able to implement dark sky friendly lighting in basically anywhere. Like we have the technology. So how dark are your skies? I'm sure anyone here use this SQM, sky quality meters. I know I took a couple measurements in my backyard a week ago or two, and I had like a 17.5, which it's pretty darn bright, right? If the darkest skies are 22. I think dark skies tend to average between 21.3 and 22, depending on how much natural air glow there is. Which can actually be pretty darn bright. And if you have aurora, it can be a little brighter. But on average, most places in New Jersey are not natural night skies. There's not a single place in New Jersey where there's not light pollution. I'm actually curious for our astronomy folks here. Has anyone here ever taken a measurement in New Jersey that was like 21 or darker? Just curious.
Here in Hopatcong, the best I got was 20.3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good for New Jersey, but
It's
yeah.
it's Bortle 5. Jenny Jump
Yeah.
is Bortle 4. If you look
Yes.
west, if you look east, it's brighter, but yeah.
That's the thing. Even if the zenith is like okay, then the horizons are usually just totally obscured. Yeah.
Always obscured, yeah, especially to the east.
Yes. Yeah, you can identify. I know there's a spot I went to in New York. It's called Basha Kill. It's off Route 17, heading up towards the Monticello area, and you can literally. It's at that like kind of like in between, maybe Bortle 5, Bortle 4, where you can actually just pinpoint the towns. You're like, yes, that's Port Jervis, that's Monticello, like those transition zones. You can just identify towns based on the light domes. So yeah, like I said, I think the closest like what I would consider dark skies, the closest ones to here are in the Catskills. gets 21.4 on the sky quality meter. Pretty good. I'm a member of the Rockland Astronomy Club. I just joined your club because I'm like, you guys are closer geographically to me, so I gotta join. But yeah, the Rockland Club goes up to the Catskills. Hopefully, like they try to go every month or two, and some pretty
Does-
darn
Does the
yeah.
Rockland Club still go up to Lake Taconic? They used to go there to observe.
Yeah, I think they do. I haven't personally been to like to get. Yeah, I heard it. That's a pretty good sky up there. I've been to like what they call Star Haven, which is about 2 hours up Route 17, or an hour 45 minutes. And yeah, it's a pretty good spot. And then Wawayanda, which is like more of a transitional sky, that's in Vernon, Wawayanda State Park. Yes. So, and yeah, Jenny Jump, I've heard is pretty. You guys, does your club go to Jenny Jump pretty often, or?
Yeah, we have an observatory. We're one of the observatories up
Oh, the
there.
United Astronomy Clubs in New Jersey. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So we have one of those observatories with a C14 up there. I think Kevin and Ed were on duty on this past Saturday, and then I'll be on duty this Saturday coming up.
Very cool.
So,
I'll
yeah.
have to check it out.
Mm.
All right. So it's a little more statistics here, but only 2 out of 10 people on Earth can see the Milky Way, like where they live directly.
Yeah.
I hope it's really not this bad. So some people might not be able to identify the Milky Way, to be fair, but it's still a pretty startling statistic. And that's 99% of Europe and the United States. I think especially Europe struggles more with this because they're just more densely populated. We've probably heard the story of the LA earthquake. I think it was 1994. 3 a.m, all the power was knocked out, and people were startled. They were looking up and they saw the Milky Way for the first time. They had no idea what it was. They thought like aliens were invading. They were calling the cops, calling Griffith Observatory, just asking like, "What is this?" And the astronomers were like, "Oh, that's the Milky Way. Like that's always there." But these thousands of people were seeing it for the first time. It really shows how disconnected most of humanity is from seeing like what the night sky actually looks like. So, and I think this is not just a thing that's like important to astronomers. I do genuinely think that like we need that connection to the stars, like just the naked eye view of the stars. If you don't even know what it is, like we psychologically need that connection to the cosmos and the rest of the universe. So that's why I'm so passionately trying to educate people on this topic. Here's a really nice, it wasn't a great event, but the 2003 Northeast blackout affected 55 million people from Canada down to Washington, D.C. This is a good before and after astro photo. Just shows like which world do you really want to live in? Like we want to. I mean, we don't want a blackout. We want electricity. We want good lighting. We just don't want to. We can have our cake and eat it too. Essentially, we can have the ground lit while being able to see the Milky Way above. Comparison of Orion high exposure image in a light polluted sky versus a Portal 1 sky. The trivia question here. Can anyone, what is that, the pink curve? I don't know how to describe it, but I was pretty amazed when I found out about it. In Orion, does anyone know what that's called?
I think that's, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, pretty amazing. Some people have said that they could see it just barely naked eye. Maybe that was like at Mauna Kea, which is one of the best, clearest skies in the world, but pretty amazing stuff.
I couldn't hear what you said. What did you say was the name of that, please?
Bernard's Loop.
Thank you.
Yes, which yeah, really mostly only identifiable in, well, I mean, I guess you could see it through telescope. But it's just an amazing thing that like it's totally obscured in a Bortle 9 sky or Bortle 8. But yes, like I said, not all doom and gloom. We really can make a difference if enough of us are advocating and doing our part here. The solution is simple. So, I mean, most types of pollution, right? You got air pollution, water pollution, CO2 induced climate change. Like these are all things that it take a while to actually clean up, remediating the soil of lead and things like that. However, light pollution, it's the opposite. It is I think it's the most simple type of pollution to solve. It just requires switching off some lights and redirecting the light putting some shields up. So basically better lighting design practices and lighting policies. We follow the 5 responsible outdoor lighting principles. These principles came together with DarkSky and the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America. They're basically like the lighting gurus of North America. And it's very simple, these 5 principles. You make sure a light is actually needed in the first place. You don't want to have like just unnecessary lights. Decorative lights, most of the time you don't need that, except for Christmas, of course. So you want to make sure the light is useful in the first place. It's a place that actually needs illumination. You make sure that light is targeted with proper shielding, so that it points downwards and there's no spill beyond where it's needed. Low level, you basically want to use the lowest level possible so that you're saving the most energy, you're not contributing to sky glow or wildlife effects. You're just using the amount of light that you need and not anymore. Of course, lighting that's controlled. Nowadays with LEDs, we have the ability to dim the lights, right? We have the ability to put the lights on timers or even use motion sensors. So I definitely encourage the use of motion sensors. They're pretty darn useful. And of course, warm colored. So, with the advent of LEDs, I think people really realize that the color spectrum of the light does matter a lot. You don't want lights that are super high in blue wavelength spectrum. Those are the ones that are more harmful to wildlife and to human health, circadian sleeping patterns. So you want to use warm colored light that resembles more so like a candle or a flame. So I'll actually show you an example of my home lighting here in a little bit. I use very warm lighting. Shielded luminaires. Basically, you can see here before and after using those really bright floodlights. As you can see with the installation of fully shielded lights there, the property is still plenty well lit. And you don't have that glare coming at you. Just another visual demonstration here. The worst being fully unshielded light, and the best being fully shielded light that is on a timer or a motion sensor, so that it's only on when it's needed. The 3 categories of lights here, you got those unshielded. So the worst is the fully unshielded acorn lights or the globe lights. And then most people tend to have, most of it, like lights that you get at Home Depot, right, for your porch lights are partially shielded. So you don't have the light going straight up. But that sideways light, people don't realize that when the glass is visible from 90 degrees, it's shining diagonally up. And the diagonal light is the worst type of, the biggest contributor to sky glow, not the directly up light. So the real solution to having no uplight is using fully shielded lighting fixtures such as this. Got like the goose head type of light, and even some, if you like that style that looks more like a lantern, nowadays they have the LED is like basically in the top of the lantern, and there's no glass, so that way it doesn't refract upwards. So there's plenty of options for any style that you like there. This is my front porch light that I just installed a couple months ago. As you can see, the bulb is not, I'm actually slightly below the horizontal plane. I purposely got a very small bulb. It's like a 3 watt Edison GE bulb. So I have it as recessed into the fixture as possible so that there's no glare and there's no uplight. That's what it looks like when it's on. It's probably about 2000 Kelvin. So a very warm light, amber, basically amber and not white. It's from the horizontal plane. That's from a little bit above. So as you can see, you're just, and it's still plenty bright. It's even illuminating down the steps toward, because some people think like, oh, if you shield the light, none of that light is going to go forward, like onto your property where you need it. But actually, as long as it's below that horizontal plane, it is throwing light forward, especially the light that's bouncing off of the wall too. So you really don't need like a floodlight in your front yard. You just, like, these fully shielded fixtures do a plenty good job at throwing light where it's needed. I keep bringing up Kelvin. Essentially, the idea is for LEDs, it's correlated color temperature because you're not actually producing the light with heat like you did with incandescent bulbs. But you know, just like with stars, you have like the warmer 2700 Kelvin is, I would say, it's not actually as warm as this image indicates. 2000 Kelvin, I would say, is like the low threshold for white light. And then when you get all the way up to a neutral white is between like 35, 4100 K. And then 6500 K and above is basically you're getting to the blue end of the spectrum there, which is the worst for sky glow. Just like how the sun, all that blue light from the sun is scattered to make the sky blue. The same principle applies to our artificial lighting. So we want that warm spectrum light. I personally advocate for it. I mean, the thing is, the market is not, it still has to respond to consumer preference, and people are picking whiter lights. But, you know, 2700 is about what most you can get. That's commercially available in most places. That's like the same color temperature as incandescent bulbs. I go for 2000 or 1800 to 2200 Kelvin. I like better, more of like the amber, like similar to the color of high pressure sodium. Those are available. You just got to look for them. Here's another just demonstration of the warm light. You got 1000 Kelvin at one side, 10,000 at the other. So the first three are pretty ideal if you want to reduce sky glow and have more visual comfort. And just a warning about intensity and warranting. Essentially, even if you have fully shielded fixtures, you do want to make sure that you're not having it be brighter than needed, because a lot of that reflected light off the ground will still contribute to sky glow, as you can see from this picture here. Even if you had fully shielded luminaires, if you're using more light than necessary, it's just bouncing right back to space. Lighting ordinances. So we had talked about like policy solutions. The model lighting ordinance by DarkSky International, they made one in 2011. Basically just a guideline for, let me see if I can actually share this. Give me 1 sec. There we go. They're creating a new one actually. So, but it's just like a basic, you know, like if you wanted to have your town be certified. I didn't even talk about the DarkSky Certified Places program for DarkSky International. You know, if a town is really committed to you know, like updating all their lighting infrastructure to be dark sky friendly, and having you know, and also it's good for astro-tourism. If you want to like advertise your town as a dark sky town, you have to basically have ordinances in place for your town to that are basically rules that say you have to have a certain type of lighting fixture, and it, you know, establishes different lighting zones. But you know, essentially like areas near like full like wildlife, you want to basically have no lighting, and then commercial districts you have like a certain level of lighting. But so there's things such as like it gets a little complicated, but you know, you basically need a lighting engineer to contract with your town for the most part. But it just sets limits on how much uplight, like what type of fixtures, like what type of street lights would be used for the town. And basically, yeah, I'm trying to get a decent lighting ordinance passed in my town of Saddlebrook. Not applying for dark sky town certification or anything. I'm just trying to get like better street lights and eventually have some type of residential ordinance. But I'm trying to get more buy-in from town residents, because they might not always want to have the government telling them what kind of lights to use. But for street lighting and for businesses, I think there is more of a place for policymakers and just you know, even just town councils to just enforce some rules for like any new development. Make sure all the lights are fully shielded. Make sure they're a certain color temperature. And I think most new businesses applying for a spot in town will comply. So let me get back to the main presentation. And where to find dark sky friendly lighting. There's of course on the DarkSky website, they have just like a giant list of different vendors and light fixtures that are have a DarkSky seal of approval. You usually will see it on the box. I know at Home Depot, I've gotten a bunch of relatively cheap fixtures that are dark sky friendly, fully shielded. If you want to get like a motion sensor, it ends up being a little more expensive, but yeah, Home Depot or Lowe's, there's usually more options online. And like the call to action, if you want to get more involved in the Dark Sky movement, our Dark Sky New Jersey chapter meets on Zoom every month. And we're actually joined with the Sierra Club NJ Dark Sky chapter. Like basically it's a combined effort and it's totally free. And we just discuss different advocacy strategies that we're doing in New Jersey. There are some like laws coming up actually. I mean, yeah, the New Jersey Assembly just passed some legislation about having any new state funded projects, the lighting would have to be fully shielded. So, and we're waiting, the New Jersey Senate is we're waiting to see what happens with there. But essentially, yeah, we talk about all different things and like lighting ordinances, things like that. And we do presentations, we do tabling events. So, and you know, if you don't want to get super involved in that, you can always just change your own outdoor lighting. And if anyone has any questions about anything related to dark sky friendly lighting or any of this, feel free to email me or call me. And of course, what I've been doing is attending mayor and council meetings. I think the more you show up at these meetings, the more people take you seriously. At first, they're like, "Oh, lighting, like got other things to deal with." But you know, if you just keep giving them those brochures and literature, that they start to get it. So there's power in numbers. And yeah, so thank you so much for having me do this presentation, and looking forward to discussing and answering any questions. Thank you guys.
Oops.
Hey, Steve, could you share some of this information on our Club IO email?
Absolutely. I'll just send you guys the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. I know some of us are also IDA members. I've been an IDA member for a number of years myself.
Excellent.
The law you're talking about was that something that was introduced in the state legislature in 2020 before the pandemic hit?
There was a version that was introduced and then basically was like, you know, not attended to for a while because of other reasons, of course. But
Right.
There was a new version for this year, 2024, and I know that it just passed the assembly, so now it's in the Senate.
Oh, okay. We had heard about that, but
Yeah.
and I tried to find some information about it earlier this year, and couldn't really find out where it was. But you say it actually has passed the
Yeah,
assembly.
according to, so like I guess my source is, and I did look it up afterwards, but yeah, the Sierra Club Dark Sky chapter, like chairperson who's part of our group, he's like in connection with a lot of some of these assemblymen and stuff. So yeah, he said it did pass the assembly, waiting on the Senate. We actually sent some emails just giving some further clarification of like, and actually some recommendations, because there was not a lot of talk about certain like Kelvin, like the color temperature of lights. So we made some recommendations there, and we're hoping for the best. But yeah, I can send that information over email.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, please do, because I have the copy of the old bill, and then the pandemic hit. So I never saw anything after that. So I was glad
Yes.
to hear something went through.
Yes, I'm gonna find it and I'll
Yeah,
let you guys.
it's really a shame because, you know, as some people in our group know, that New Jersey had a push, you know, an anti-light pollution push, you know, back in the 90s, more than 20 years ago. And we had this light pollution study commission that got passed and signed into law. And they had a commission that studied this and they made recommendations. And that was really great. But then it never really went anywhere. And the whole thing kind
Oh
of,
man.
you know, and which is really a shame because we were really at the forefront at the time, and a lot of ground has been lost since then. As everyone knows, the light pollution situation is getting worse over time, you know.
Really
In
bad.
fact, actually, one of our older members of our club recently handed me a couple of articles from the Bergen Record that have published some nice editorials about light pollution back, and I think they're almost 20 years old now, and it's kind of a shame that no action has been made on that. So it's good to hear that this bill is going through.
Yeah.
You know?
And the formation of this chapter, the New Jersey chapter of Dark Sky, just basically launched this year. Like there was basically before, because I'm like one of 3 delegates, and there was basically 1 delegate before down in Tom's River. And yeah, I mean
For the
it's
Tom's River one, yeah.
yes, James Webster. He's a good guy. He's basically our chair. But yeah, like I mean, it's definitely picking up. I mean, we have like at least 10 to 15 people like in our group, and we're always accepting new people. It's just a Zoom call that we do every
That's great.
month. So
Great.
things are looking up.
Cool.
Any other questions,
Other
comments? Feel free.
questions or comments from the peanut gallery?
Well, how about
Steve-
recommendations? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Someone.
Yeah,
talking.
hi, this is Donna.
Yeah, Donna.
I have a lot of smart lights outside, and I'm really thinking I really need to go around my house and check my lighting because I complain about everybody else, and I'm not sure I'm totally compliant. But if you set your smart light LED lights to just a low temperature, that's effective. If you just keep them.
Well, yeah, low temperature is definitely better than the bright blue ones. And it's best if they're aimed, if they're aimed properly. I mean, do you have like shielded fixtures or?
No, I don't. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking at my house.
need to
But yeah, the
Yeah.
warmer is
I
definitely better than blue. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, honestly, I keep the lights out unless I walk outside. So that's
I mean,
sort of my
that's good.
solution
It
rather
really-
than changing the fixtures. And I'm pretty sensitive to lights when I see them. So, but it
Honestly,
would
the
be
fact
nice.
that
My
the fact that
husband,
you only have it on when you need it is really important. It's really good. So
Yeah.
yeah,
that is
my
good.
husband does complain about that all the time. So I might have to look into other options.
No, I would suppress your husband.
I do.
Well, of course, you know,
Suppress him.
He's
think-
listening in the background too. So.
No, I have that same problem with Claire too. She likes to have, Christmas lights on, and I'm always turning the lights off. My neighbors, some of them have lights that are motion lights, and this is actually something I wanted to mention.
mhm.
Motion lights in of themselves, and Steve, you brought up a point about aiming them. The fixtures themselves need to be aimed, but not only that, people tend to like to aim the sensors. So when people are walking down the streets, all of a sudden their lights turn on and everyone gets blinded. That is almost worse than leaving them on all the time because your eyes have been adapted to the darkness and now you're blinded. I have that surrounding me all the time.
It's same here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
It's
needs to
nice that it's
stop.
not on all the time, but when it is on, it like just
Right.
yeah, it's blinding.
I mean, if I could create an electromagnetic pulse handheld one, I'd be like bloop, 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 goodbye.
Yeah,
Turn them
yeah.
off. But yeah.
You can adjust in most modern sensors. You can adjust the sensitivity. So yeah, it shouldn't be so that like if a car drives by, it turns on. Like it really should be if someone's like walking up to the door, then it
Right.
turns on. Yeah.
Right, and that's what happens. I'm driving down the street and coming home at night, and all of a sudden the light comes on and it's in my face and I can't see. And that's
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
That's
not
the
good for
problem.
safety.
yeah.
Do you know if some of the town, I know there are some streetlights around us that seem to go off, that almost seem to be motion driven, or they just don't work right. I'm not quite sure. And other lights, of course, the one in front of my house stays on, ruining my southern view all the
Yeah.
time.
So unfortunately I haven't seen motions. I mean, motion sensor streetlights would be great. That might be coming soon. But I mean, I know a lot of the old high pressure sodium lights. I've seen them just turn off. I think that's just because the bulbs are failing.
Okay.
I think that's normal though, and I forget exactly why, but there's a certain cycle to them, and they will cycle, and so that's what you're
Okay,
seeing.
sure.
Mm.
They're not motion sensing, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah,
In
it's
some
electric.
places, yeah, in
The
some
good,
places
the good,
in
sorry.
Europe they've done some. I've seen some pretty cool stuff where they have motion sensors on highways, and so as the cars pass.
Yeah.
Lights, then they turn off. Well, that's a great idea because there's no one there at 3 o'clock in the morning. you know.
Yeah, there's really no need. One of the good things about LEDs actually is that it's much like now most of the new streetlights are actually fully shielded. Like because the diodes are small and they don't need to be in this big glass bulb. It does allow for better shielding. So I noticed like a lot of new streetlights and parking lot lights are fully shielded. Like they're basically flat. But the problem is like they're super, super bright. So like The brightness and the color temperature matters a lot too. But
And I guess that becomes a problem because I guess when they first talked about having LED lights, those of us who were concerned about light pollution thought this was a great idea because you could focus it on the ground, but it turns out that they reflect a lot of light, even though most of the time they're pointed at what we consider blacktop, that actually reflects quite a bit of light. And so reflected light is a problem with
yeah,
and so
the high blue spectrum
Yeah.
that really makes a
that
difference.
too scatters. Yeah.
And if you have humidity like we have in the summer in particular, that scatters off the humidity and the water droplets in the air. And
Mhm.
even those shielded lights that the new LEDs, and a lot of them are shielded, but not quite enough. It looks shielded, but you're still that person in that picture where you're getting that light trespass coming down on an angle like this.
Well, yeah.
And you still get that.
Well, yeah, especially because it's above you. That's the problem. Like when with like bollard lights, or like porch lights, you can actually get that effect of the full shielding because it's like below the eye level.
Right.
So
Now,
there's still that issue of glare
if you can see the bulb, it is light trespass. There's no
absolutely.
Yeah.
You still glare. So
Is there research about how each lighting affects us neurologically? Do you know?
all right. So the most evidence in terms of really, really bright white, like blue with the blue spectrum with the high Kelvin lighting. I know there have been some links with there's been some studies showing a correlation with macular degeneration, with a lot of exposure to like glaring white blue light. Like they just think the headlights that are just too bright. And I know that, just the older you get, the more prone you are to like having disability glare. Because your pupils can't dilate or adjust as fast as when you're young.
Okay.
So yeah, the headlights and they really are a problem.
And Steve, to follow that up, there are studies that are going on now. It's not necessarily neurological, but you're worried about, it's related to the melatonin, melatonin production and cancers. Certain cancers are.
Yes.
Wow.
Shift. They did studies, the nurses studies on shift workers, people working basically between 11 and 7 a.m. And there's an increased risk of like breast cancer among night workers in hospitals because they're under like and a lot of hospital lighting is unfortunately very hot, like white and bluish spectrum. So yeah, just during the times when evolutionarily you're supposed to be sleeping and you're exposing yourself to like daytime levels of light. Yeah, it's inhibiting melatonin production and messes up your sleep.
I actually met someone at the post office who was allergic of getting ill. He got a really bad headache from the fluorescent lighting. And I remember a doctor telling me many years ago, that it affects the brain and the eyes because of the way that the light is given off. It's very quick.
Yeah.
And we don't see it, but it affects.
Yeah. And now that you bring it up too, it literally reminded me, like people who are susceptible to migraines or migraine with aura.
Yes.
Like my wife, literally, if she's like under lights that are too bright, she literally will start getting the aura. She'll take Advil. I mean, and the flicker. Some people are very sensitive to LED flicker. I mean, obviously incandescents have a lot of issues, but like they didn't have that type of flicker. So that's something that lighting engineers are working on. Yeah.
Okay.
Blue light at noon is okay. Yeah, exactly. In the chat, you're saying, like if you want to focus and you want that date, if say your indoor environment is too dark at like noon, like you do want that brighter white blue. Of course, not shining directly in your eyes, but like maybe overhead. But just at night, you don't need that daylight spectrum of light.
Right.
Yeah.
Just looking at the chat. Oh yeah, I want to join you guys for the next Adirondacks retreat. I love the Adirondacks.
Oh yeah, you'd love that. David Rossiter from the Arizona chapter, one of the Arizona chapters, he comes to the Adirondack retreat with David Levy. Matter of fact, he accompanies him quite often. So yeah, you guys could talk about dark sky quite a bit.
Very cool. I know that there are the towns up there, Tupper Lake. The head of the observatory there wants to apply for dark skies certification for the town of Tupper Lake. And I know Lake Placid just formed a dark sky committee and they're working. So yeah, it's in the works. So there's a lot of awareness in these the areas that still have dark skies, and they have to protect them. So
You have to protect them because,
mm,
I mean, the Adirondack retreat is Bortle 3-2. Bortle 2 looking west going into the Adirondacks.
Yeah.
Bortle 3 looking towards like Burlington. So the
Yeah.
northeast section is a little brighter. You can see you can kind of see a hint of a light dome there.
Yeah,
But
makes sense.
right, but it's still Milky Way from one end to the other. It's a
Yeah, it's great. And
pretty
yeah, I
good.
think a lot of times when people who live in like really like rural areas, they take it for granted. They don't realize like, so anytime I go to a place like that, I'm just like, yeah, I love coming up here. I love I'll mention something about the light pollution because because otherwise, if there's just more rapid development. I know there hasn't been as much in the east, but I know in the desert west, there's been a lot of suburbanization outside of major cities, and there's been a lot of growing light pollution out there. So.
Right.
Any other questions, was Woodland Park 17.62. Yeah, sounds about right.
So I don't see any other questions at all. So I want to thank you, Steve, for this presentation. This is great, and great to hear about the bill, and anything that we can do to support that. Let us know.
Yeah.
For sure. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'll send you guys all the info about the Dark Sky chapter, and I'll send you about the bills and all that stuff.
Please,
And
yeah,
including my PowerPoint presentation too. If any of you wanted to use my presentation, by all means, you can use it for any of your purposes.
Thank you
Excellent.
very, very much.
Thank
It was
you.
Thanks a lot.
really,
It's great.
Okay.
Anytime. Thank you guys.
We are going to move on to the business portion of our meeting for any of the public that have joined us. Thanks for visiting us for our October meeting. We have another nice presentation coming up next month. We have the director of MIT's Haystack Observatory, Radio Observatory, is going to give a presentation on black holes. So it should be a really interesting presentation. And so please join us at that point. Great. Okay, so